Part 24. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 231. Although Sugu was soaked through, he didn't think about going back to change clothes. The main reason is that winter has passed now, and it is not too cold in this southern port city. Of course, the actual reason is that Bismarck left and did not come back, and Xiaozai also went to see the ship but did not come back, so it was difficult to leave. The soaked clothes were a bit heavy and still a little uncomfortable to wear, but Sugu was not that squeamish. Noon had just arrived, and the sun was brighter than in the morning. He took off his outermost clothes, wearing only a shirt, and sat with a group of little girls. "How have you been doing during my absence?" U-47 said. "Anyway, I followed Admiral Hipper's sister everywhere, walking here and there, and then I came here, and then lived here for several months." "What's life like?" "It's good, but Sister Hipper won't buy us ice cream. Sister Blucher likes to make her own ice cream for us to eat, but she always puts a lot of cream on it, which is annoying. She even pinches people's faces after eating. And she wants us to praise her for doing a good job, which is really difficult." "Oh, is Blucher actually a married woman?" "Sister Hipper only gives us a little pocket money. It's not as good as the admirals who come here often and give us more pocket money. They want to give us every time, but we don't take it. They also buy us gifts, those expensive gifts cannot be accepted. Anyway, I only want chocolates and candies. The man who was standing with you just now likes to give us candies and wants us to call him uncle." "No." U-505 said, "So wretched." U-81 whispered, "Goldfish man." Seeing the reactions of his little girls, Sugu showed a pleased smile and said, "They are not well-intentioned and want to fish you out. You must not accept their sugar-coated bullets. I know they want to pick us up, but they give us delicious food every time. I thought, it would be good if we recognized them as admirals." "Who told you that you are not good to us? How is that possible?" "I should be very kind to you." Sugu said this, thinking that if it was in the game, he would still be very loving towards the submarine. "Where is that?" U-47 said and hit Sugu's waist with his head. "I remember when I first arrived at the town guard house, my sister said that I was a byproduct of fishing out my underwear. What an inexplicable thing. I remembered that I saw an advertisement before, and that advertisement said something like 'I am yours, what are you mine,' such advertising slogan. Every time I hear that advertising slogan, I am thinking, what am I, what are you my underwear submarine. It feels so strange. If you want to fish for U-47, fish for it properly, but you actually fish for U-47 just to fish for underwear. Alas, it shouldn't be called panty fishing. It should be two complementary things. Moreover, I also wanted to fish for you before, but wasn't it impossible to fish for you? Fishing for panties should be a trophy activity. You can fish for panties while fishing for them." U-47, "But who said that the original Valkyrie activities could not be fished out?" "You have the nerve to say it. Everyone in the garrison is very friendly, but the sisters of the destroyer, it's not that they are bad, it's just that their eyes look strange every time they see me. Later someone told me that they were the ones who used to. It took a long time to fish out the U-47, but you asked everyone to attack, and everyone took turns lining up to wait for repairs. Then everyone couldn't fish it out, and the admiral scolded you. Everyone said that the admiral's face was bad because he couldn't fish it out, and he was unlucky. Can you blame me for not coming? And you also cursed. So the destroyer sisters pinched my face when they saw me." Sugu said, "I remember I arranged for you to practice." "Yes, the exercise can be regarded as focusing on the performance of the ship girl." Okay, Admiral, I have the nerve to say that every time we meet a team that we can't beat, we are invited out, and we are only pulled out when we can't beat the battleships and aircraft carriers on the opposite side. Hey, bad Admiral. And it's like this every time. The opponent is not challenging at all. Sugu was very calm, covering his face with one hand, and said, "That's not an enemy specially selected for you just to prevent you from getting hurt. And you said you don't want us to get hurt? I remember when we first arrived at the townhouse, you actually pulled one of us out to attack. Wow, you always come back injured. I asked you what you were doing and said you had a mission. That was a mission that required repairs to 5 ship girls. What kind of inexplicable mission was it? Was it a request from the ship girls' headquarters? How could there be such a strange request? If an attack was to be launched, it would be understandable. How could there be a mission that requires people to be injured and repaired? Ah! Besides, we kids can't be asked to go out." Sugu was sweating. It seemed that he had actually done such a thing. He was about to complete the daily repair task, but there was still one short step left. Then, thanks to the short repair time of the submarine and the low cost of repair resources, it was natural to pull the submarine out. Thinking about it, well, it's not my fault, it's really all the game's fault. I asked U-81 and U-505, you also want them to have done such a thing. Big Mackerel and Archer Fish also asked, you also want them to have done this. U-47 hit Sugu on the waist again with his head and said, "Admiral, you like to see the butt of the Archer Fish. It was only after the cannon submerged Sukufa changed into new clothes that you gave her the opportunity to practice and attack. In the past, she was a cannon dive M1 and go out with us. Now M1 can't go out and has been replaced by Sukuf. Do you have any thoughts about the little girl? You also said that U-81 is lustful, even though you want to see her breasts wrapped in bandages." When U-47 said this, U-81 blushed and said, "No." After hearing what U-47 said, U-505 swung his legs, opened his arms, and said, "We have arrested a lot of Lilicons here. Admiral, people like you will definitely be hanged. In terms of model, U-505 should be considered the younger sister, but it is the oldest mentally among them." U-47 said, "Are you coming here now and calling us back again? Will you leave again later?" Sugu didn't know how to answer for a while. At this time, he suddenly heard a voice. It was not the voice of several small submarines. It was you who wanted to separate at the beginning, and you separated when you separated. Now you want to use true love to coax me back. Love is not something you want to sell, but you can sell it if you want to buy it. Everyone was talking, and when Sugukei heard the singing, he suddenly found that Xiaozai had come over and squatted beside him, holding his face in his hands, and then sang with a childish voice. "Isn't this a love business? I remember that I sang in the past, but Xiaozai, what are you singing next to me now? Firstly, it doesn't match, and secondly, don't you think this place is not chaotic enough? You are a guy who is afraid of chaos in the world. Xiaozai sings well." Sugugong wanted to pinch Xiaozai's face. He didn't come over originally, but now he comes and is causing trouble. However, Sugu's ferocious expression was completely unable to scare Xiaozai, and then she heard her singing loudly, "Who is it that sent you to me? It's that powerful Xiaozai Xiaozai, it's that cute Xiaozai, it's that cute Xiaozai, it's that cute little house, little house." Although the little loli's voice is young and innocent and has a unique charm, it is not good to brag like this. Sugu said, "Xiaozai, stop singing." U-47 said, "Xiaozai, keep singing." Suddenly Xiaozai snorted, "Okay." Sugu covered his face, "I misjudged you, Xiaozai." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 232. 100 Ways to Kidnap a Little Girl. With a few submarine girls and Xiaozai, who is best at causing trouble, we walk to a big tree not far from the seaside. There is a bench under the big tree. The bench has iron armrests and is covered with yellow painted wooden boards. The armrests are somewhat rusty and the wooden boards are polished smooth. It looks like it has been aged for a while. Sugu sat on the bench, and U-81 sat beside him. Now her wolf cubs had left her and were playing around. Just like Xiaozai originally picked them up at the beach, they will not always stay with U-81. U-505 was standing on the bench with bare feet, standing on tiptoes trying to pull the hanging branches of the big tree. U-47 was stroking Sugu's hair, and then Sugu hugged him with one hand and pushed him onto his leg. Xiaozai, who was originally singing, has completely shut up now and is just chattering. After all, she only knows a few words over and over again. Of course, Xiaozai is still very talented, but Sugu cannot sing all the songs, only a few lines. As Xiaozai who stole his teachings from him, there was nothing he could do. Sugu leaned on the chair and looked into the distance. Bismarck still didn't come back. It turns out that the small house has never been mentioned, and the few subs have never asked how they came here or who they came with. At this time, Sugu came over to Xiaozai, so Sugu told him about bringing Xiaozai and Bismarck over. Of course, there are some things that I won't talk about, such as meeting Eugene and being treated as a child molester, but I still mentioned a few things about Plan M. Sugu talked about his own affairs, and then U-47 also said, "We have been here for a long time." It turned out that Sister Bismarck and Sister Bizai left very early, and then Sister Hipper came and asked us to follow. She left together. There were still many people in the town hall at that time, but she said that everyone would definitely leave. Then she took us away. Although she looked quite fierce, Sister Hipper was a very good person. Sister Blucher always takes care of us, but today she had something to do and didn't care about us. We went to the bottom of the sea to play, and U-81 swam away alone. I didn't expect to meet the Admiral. If I hadn't met him, I don't know what to do. How long did it take to find the Admiral? Admiral, I miss you. Sugu nodded. The last sentence was particularly good. U-47, please be more cute. Sister M plan is a bit stupid, but she is the most interesting. She likes to take us to play on her bicycle. Her ship has a skateboard, and she always plays in the courtyard. Sister Hipper will say when she sees it her. One time I saw her skateboarding, and then she told us, my M plan will never roll over, and then she rolled over and fell into disgrace. After that, she never said such things in front of me. Now the three of us live in a room with 3-tiered beds. It's hot these days when I cover myself with a quilt, but it's cold when I don't cover myself with a quilt. The weather here is weird, but it's very interesting here. There are mango trees planted on the roadside. I remember the mango trees grow when we came out, we went to pick them, but those green mangoes were so unpalatable. There are also many coconut trees here. I could smash the coconuts with one punch. Sometimes you can see particularly large crabs on the beach, called coconut crabs. Well, there are some here. Sometimes the circus comes to perform. U-505 said, you have the nerve to say that you touched the venomous snake in the circus and almost scared the boss to death. U-47 is a master at seeking death, but as a ship girl, you don't have to worry about these problems. Even if you are bitten by a poisonous snake, you will not be hurt at all. Sugu remembered learning how to most effectively eliminate a ship girl when he was taking exams at the academy. As a ship girl born from history and memory, emotion and recognition are the biggest enemies, so as an admiral, you must not be perfunctory in dealing with this aspect. Just like the problem York City encountered back then, if Sugu ignored it, he would be in trouble. Even though he had been away for such a long time, he still managed to get several little girls to recognize him in a short period of time. Sugu was a good hand at treating little girls. Up to now, Sugu firmly believed that his popularity among the destroyers in the garrison was higher than that of Lexington. Although he was criticized for being a bastard admiral just now, that is in the past after all, and he is still very loving no matter what. After listening to so much, Sugu actually discovered that the submarines lived a pretty good life. Admiral Hipper's gendarmerie is definitely not lacking in material, but no matter how rich it is, neither Admiral Hipper nor Blucher are usually very busy with work and cannot take care of a few children with peace of mind. Submarine never thought of sending them to school. Sugu stretched out a hand to rub U-47's head and said, "We have now established a new town hall. There is a playground in the town hall, which is very big. In fact, it's not that big. At most, it's like a playground in a kindergarten. But when it comes to sails, you have to be exaggerated. There is a slide, a sand pool, and there is a rocking tiger in the sand pool. Of course there is a seesaw, and of course there are swings and so on. After all, we are a professional playground. Originally we wanted to build a tree house, but it needs to be specifically reinforced with cement. It's too troublesome, so forget it, but if you come over, we'll build a tree house." Sugu remembered that when he first built the amusement park in the governor's mansion, he even considered a roller coaster or a Ferris wheel, but just think about those things and forget about it. Now there is no such ability and no need. But in other aspects, basically all the entertainment facilities that can be thought of have been thought of. In terms of entertainment, Sugu can proudly say that he is better at it than everyone else in the world. Sugu made a good point, but it was a pity that U-47 was not interested in the treehouse and said, "I want a swimming pool. There is a sea next to it." "What do you want a swimming pool for? Moreover, the sea water over there is very clear because there is white sand below. Your sister Lexington is there. As you know, she is the gentlest and can take care of people. Your sister Counterattack is also there. She manages the entire town hall. Everything is beautiful and clean. And Eugene Prince, there are San Juan, Exeter." Sugu said this, thinking that in the entire garrison, these are the people who seem to be able to do something. Others, whether it is Bazai, Saratoga or the Prince of Wales, are probably not very reliable. U-47 said, "Who is San Juan?" U-505 said, "It's the light cruiser San Juan. We haven't seen many of them during our sorties." "Oh, I remembered it." Sugu remembered that submarines were specially used to salvage ships. It seemed that the San Juan had indeed produced a lot of them. After all, they were just dog food. What about Exeter? Who is it? Heavy cruiser, maybe. Is it necessary to hesitate so much? Sugu ignored the whispers of the submarines and added, "Leipzig has now opened a store. In fact, she is just a warehouse manager now, and Grandet is a warehouse manager. That is how people perform their duties. Now we have bought a lot of things in the governor's mansion, including refrigerators, ice shavers, and ovens. No matter what you want to eat, you can eat it. Anyway, you can just ask Prince Eugene to get it. She will definitely give it to you, she is your good sister. Your Bazai sister has a lot of comics. I will definitely not show them to you because they are not suitable for children. There is story time every night. Yes, your admiral will tell it. You can just ask Xiaozai. So, you will definitely follow me back." When Sugu said this, he could already see the expectant look in the little girl's eyes. Then Sugu looked at U-47, and U-47 looked at him. Then the two of them stared at each other, and U-47 shouted at the top of his lungs, "Is anyone here? There are human traffickers here who are luring little girls." Sugu looked embarrassed, and then U-47 put his arm around his shoulders and said, "That's strange. Of course we have to go back with the Admiral. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 233. In the gendarmerie compound, the submarine was about to be abducted, but the people inside the gendarmerie building didn't know it yet. At this time, the red-haired woman was sitting in the office. She was wearing a white military police uniform. The waist of the military police uniform was very narrow. After all, most shipgirls were slender. At this time, the military police uniform designed for the shipgirl was worn on her body. The uniform was tight, so her chest was bulging, and the second button from the top to the bottom was already a little shaky. That was a weight that life could not bear. Of course, that's just a life of poverty. At this time, the office had just been puttied a few days ago, and the curtains were wide open, making it look bright. She held a stack of documents and placed them on the table. Opposite her was an admiral who looked to be in his 30s and had a scar on his face, wearing an admiral's hat similar to a large cap. Let me tell you, many reports have been sent to our gendarmerie. The role of the military police is to maintain the connection between human society and the admiral. After all, although the admiral is not allowed to interfere in the affairs of human society, he will always deal with human society. Admirals are just ordinary people, and they often make mistakes, more or less, on many issues. He will get angry when provoked, and he will beat up those thieves if they are stolen on the road. Because there are basically no ordinary people in some garrison houses except for shipgirls and admirals. If a thief comes to the garrison house, he will be stolen. What to do when faced with such a thief? Beat him up and throw him out, tell the police, and then someone will come and clean him up. Sometimes they are cruel, but some people are dissatisfied and send a report letter to the gendarmerie, saying that you are bullying. The garrison will also make deals with some companies or people and do escort work, that is, expeditions. Some people say that you are using your private life to abolish public service. You do not deal with or suppress the deep-sea warships in the sea area, but instead go about expeditions. Although in fact, a garrison can only do it, first get the report, and then suppress it. However, some people don't understand and want your ship girl to patrol the sea anytime and anywhere. All in all, there are always some messy problems, and as a military police officer, you have to review them. The gendarmerie is both the petition office and the disciplinary inspection office. The red-haired woman held a large document and placed it on the table. At the same time, the admiral sitting opposite her picked up the document and flipped through a few pages. The contents of these documents were all about him. He put the documents down after just 2 glances, and then said, "It's nonsense. When you receive the report, you must at least review it, eldest sister, Blucher." Although the red-haired woman is plump, her appearance is only around 20, and the ship girl really has no need to consider her age. Some ship girls look like they are in their 20s when they wake up, and some ship girls live for many years and are still little girls. But no matter what, calling a young girl eldest sister is a very fatal thing. But the reason why the admiral dared to do this was because the other party was easy to talk to. The ship girl named Blucher had a much gentler personality than her sister. This is all a mess. Deep-sea ship girls appeared in 2 places at the same time. My team can only suppress the deep-sea ship girls in 1 place at the same time. It's just me being biased, but I can't create a formation. Anyway, I'm going whichever side I go to, the other side will complain about me. Blucher said, "Don't think that I don't know your thoughts. You took money from that village. Suppressing the deep-sea ship girls is something we must do. We will not do anything to collect money. Then that village should have a better attitude towards you, or else it would often send you some souvenirs and the like. We collect souvenirs and the like, but not the money. And don't you know, it's not good to say this kind of thing. I just don't like the other village." The red-haired Blucher was a little discouraged to speak so bluntly in front of the military police. Is he so lacking in authority? However, things like this often happen, and even the admiral cannot be absolutely fair. The ship girl headquarters turns a blind eye to these things. If the water is clear, there will be no fish, and if the people are careful, there will be no disciples. As long as the admiral can handle things well in a big way, he will not degenerate to the point of giving money to suppress the deep-sea ship girls. As long as things are not done too much, like this multiple choice question, the ship girls' headquarters gave the admiral the space to make multiple choice questions. Of course, everything has a certain degree. As long as it does not exceed this degree, the military police will not care. The matter came to an end, and then Blucher pulled out a document from the table and said, "This one." Well, this is what happened. At this time, Blucher clicked on quite a few documents, and the admiral opposite gave an explanation. Then she dug out another document from the pile and said, "Then how should you explain this one? What's going on? It's great that you publicized the destroyer misbehaving in public. Isn't the reason why I preached because there are no submarines, a matter-of-fact expression?" Blucher sighed, waved his hands for a long time, and said, "Forget it." Originally wanting people to leave, Blucher suddenly thought of something. "By the way, I almost forgot about it. There is a report here saying that a deep-sea ship girl appeared in Coral Bay a long time ago. Why haven't you dealt with it?" "Sister, that's a deep-sea battleship. I don't dare to risk the life of my ship's wife. I'm discussing with others to form a joint fleet. The ship's wife is the most important existence of an admiral. In terms of identity and emotion, she may be a colleague, a wife, sister, or daughter, may cause irreparable damage to the ship's daughter if attacked. A considerable number of admirals will never make fun of their own ship's daughter. Blucher is still very clear about this. After thinking for a moment, I realized that letting the ship girl die was not allowed by the military police, because the military police also existed to protect the ship girl. Blucher said, "If this is a problem, you can apply for reinforcements, or even tell me that I can easily defeat the deep-sea battleship." "Oh, really, sister, you are just a heavy cruiser, but you still want to fight a battleship?" Be more confident. After hearing what Blucher said, the admiral stood up and complained. At this time, the documents were almost processed, so he stood up and said, "I'm going to your sister's place. There's a meeting over there. I won't talk to you anymore. Don't talk about my sister, the military police don't pay attention to this. She and I have a superior-subordinate relationship." The admiral waved his hand and walked out of the office to the corridor. He immediately complained to his ship girl who was standing outside, "Blucher is good at everything, he has a good figure and a good personality, but he is a little too confident. She is just a heavy cruiser. Does she also want to fight a battleship? I once heard that she challenged a deep-sea battleship and was beaten miserably. Later, it was their submarine that took action." Blucher was fascinated by the confidence. On the other side, Blucher vaguely heard the admiral's words. She took a sip of water and thought to herself, what does it mean to be obsessed with self-confidence? She is already very strong, super strong. With this thought in mind, she walked out of the office soon and saw Plan M looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 234. I have just dealt with a lot of things in the office. I have called the admirals of the nearby garrison here one by one in the past few days, and by now I have dealt with the accumulated things in one go. Next, the admirals will have a meeting with their sister, Admiral Hipper, and they probably have some things to say. But anyway, her own work is over for the time being. At this time Blucher walked out of the office and walked through the corridor of the gendarmerie building, preparing to go to the room located on the far right side of the building. There is a rest room. After all, fatigue is a woman's biggest enemy. She was walking in the corridor when she suddenly met Plan M and decided to get out of the way. After all, he was a terrible guy, especially one who couldn't speak. She just wanted to avoid it, but M Plan came over with a worried look on her face, so Blucher could only ignore her with a straight face. However, this is not something that can be solved by ignoring her. Plan M is to follow her all the time. After walking like this for 2 steps and passing through rooms, Blucher finally stopped and said, "Why have you been following me? Just tell me if you have anything to do. I'm going to bed." "Why are you sleeping so early? Before talking about business, talk about some gossip. This is the way to do things. It's a nap, and a catch-up sleep. I'm so busy today that I woke up very early in the morning to deal with work. And who do you think is the reason for you? Who is it that's been away all day? I don't do anything with my salary, so who am I doing so much work for these days?" Plan M showed an awkward smile and said, "I have something to do." Blucher ignored Plan M, walked all the way to the door of the lounge, pushed open the door of the lounge, and then closed the curtains in the room, immediately blocking all the light. "You can say whatever you want, or I'll go to sleep." With that said, Blucher lay on the bed and covered his eyes with his hands. As a lounge, it was already equipped with a lot of things. At this time, the room felt like a hotel. However, Project M was obviously not good at dealing with people. Blucher closed the curtains and prepared to sleep. She immediately reached out and turned up the lights in the office, and then saw Blucher lying on the bed, dozing off. Long, slightly curly red hair, fair skin, and a body that is more plump or fleshy than slender. Only those real experienced drivers know the benefits of such a body. Thinking about Plan M like this, she reached out and touched those white thighs, and suddenly a big iron anchor hit her. Plan M was put aside, and the anchor flew by with a whistling sound. Blucher sat up on the bed and said, "What are you touching? What do you want to do? The thighs are great." What greeted her next was Blucher's ship suit, which looked like a huge ship-cutting knife with a long handle. Unfortunately, the ship-cutting knife was dodged by Project M. Blucher could only look at Project M and twitch the corner of his mouth. Although I have long known that Project M is a difficult guy, after all, I wanted to say hello at the beginning, but how can I tell people when they meet that you are leaking diapers or something like that? That is an absolute black history. Even if it is a big break, if there is urine leakage, it is just oil leakage. That guy Dafeng is the one who leaks urine. I know the other person's character, but I'm still unhappy. At this time, Blucher was no longer sleepy and looked at the other party eagerly. "What on earth is going on with you?" Then Plan M said, "I saw your sister was abducted." "My sister is not here. She abandoned her sister and left with someone else. He is quite resentful that his sister, Prince Eugen, is not close to her at all. She followed the eldest sister, Bismarck, and ran away, and she doesn't know where she is now. Where can one be trafficked?" Hearing Blucher's words at this time, Plan M was also a little confused and said, "Your sister? I mean U-81. I saw someone taking U-81 away. Doesn't it matter if U-81 is taken away?" "Oh, U-81? U-81. Blucher repeated the sentence, becoming sharper in the next second, staring at Plan M with suspicion. "But U-81, even U-47 and U-505, are like mascots in the military police compound, although they have more combat experience than everyone else in the military police here, they are just small boats. Can only exist as a mascot. Although Plan M is usually unreliable, I never dare to joke about such things. The military police have already given repeated orders not to take action against the submarines. After all, everyone is a ship's wife with an admiral, even though the admiral is currently missing. Moreover, it seems that my admiral has some perverted desires for control. Although he doesn't know where he has gone now, as a ship girl, I must protect everyone. Do not lie to me. When have I ever lied to you?" As he said this, M planned to pick up the fruit on the coffee table next to the sofa and eat it. "Don't eat my food. Don't be so stingy. Forget it, I'm too lazy to care about you." But Blucher would not be fooled so easily. She said, "If U-81 was abducted, why are you here? Didn't you keep saying that you wanted to catch those Lolita control people? I think so too. I'm in a dilemma too. I've put in a lot of effort, but it still doesn't work. The ship girl that the Admiral is carrying around looks very powerful. She must be a battleship. Do you know about battleships? We all called Yujin and her ship girl Mutsu over. In fact, when someone came to her door, she ran away as soon as possible. Later, she only watched from a distance to see what exactly happened. Anyway, nothing happened in the end. At that time, I saw Mutsu, who was known as the invincible fighter in the world, squatting on the ground. Although I also saw the Admiral's ship girl spread out her ship uniform, I didn't recognize it, but I felt that she looked so powerful. Plan M showed an exaggerated expression and said, "Battleships, very powerful battleships, I can't even defeat them. It's normal that you can't beat him. Who can you beat? Can't you beat me too? How can I not defeat you? I'm so powerful. Let me tell you, I'm equipped with the most powerful long-range cannon on a heavy cruiser. I guess you've never seen it before." Hearing Plan M say this said, Bruhil suddenly became angry. He was very powerful. At the beginning, he was also ranked as the #1 person in the governor's mansion, although after double digits, he was ranked second. Blucher asked, "What does that battleship look like?" What does it look like? Let me think about it. She has short silver gray hair, and it looks like cat ears on both sides. Her hair is silver gray, and in terms of appearance, she is a beautiful ship girl, but she also looks very heroic. Blucher felt more and more wrong when he heard the description of Plan M, and quickly said, "Wait a minute and be more specific. I feel like I know him." As Blucher said this, he suddenly heard a voice. "You just know, Blucher, long time no see." Plan M whispered, "Here, it's her." When Blucher saw the familiar figure, he began to be in a daze. Sister Bismarck. When she suddenly saw Bismarck, all the seriousness she had put on for a long time was abandoned, and she wanted to pounce on him. Then she thought of Bismarck's always serious character, so she forcibly stopped her movements, but the blush on her face still revealed her inner excitement. On the other side, Plan M was a little confused. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 235. Plan M wanted to speak, but felt completely unable to speak. Because the two people who hadn't seen each other for a long time were talking constantly. "When did Sister Bismarck come here?" "I came here this morning." "How did you know we were here?" "I was just in the yard and saw you walking through the corridor, so I came over." "How did you know we were here at the gendarmerie?" "We didn't know until we met U-81. Blucher suddenly understood and said, "U-81 always likes to run outside and play alone with his pets. Sister Bismarck must have met her." "I didn't meet them, Xiao Zai picked them up." "Well, Xiao Zai found Berg and the others." "Has Xiao Zai come here too?" "Have you found Xiao Zai?" Blucher clearly remembered that when the Admiral left, everyone searched frantically, but even after all the resources were exhausted, no one could be found. When many people gave up, Xiao Zai still did not give up and left alone. "I didn't find Xiao Zai, it was the Admiral who found Xiao Zai and brought Xiao Zai over with me." "The Admiral is here too," she said, and then her voice paused, as if she was surprised. "Our Admiral." Bismarck said, "Of course it is our Admiral who is shouting, and the one holding U-81 is the Admiral." "U-81, you should know her character, otherwise do you think anyone can hold her?" But the Admiral is not completely missing. No matter the news, clues, or even the ship girl, she has no sixth sense." Blucher nodded first. After all, U-81 didn't even give him a hug, but the Admiral, it is a unique existence. But compared to this question, she had a bigger question, and that was about everyone's Admiral. "I don't know why, but he just came back. There are some things he didn't want to say, and we didn't get to the bottom of it. As long as he comes back, everything will be irrelevant. Of course Sugu told Bismarck many things, but there were some things he would not say. At this time, Bismarck told Blücher again. The admiral was found by Xiaozai. In fact, it should be said that the admiral found Xiaozai. The one holding U-81 was the admiral. U-81 came out of the water, all wet, and didn't even wear shoes. Then we just thought that since we were coming over, it would be better to buy some gifts for U-47 and U-505. Unexpectedly, we were seen. Although Bismarck didn't like gossip, it was funny to think that his admiral was a nymphomaniac. Blücher and Admiral Hipper were actually military policemen, which was something they never thought of at first, especially since they didn't expect that there was such an unreliable Plan M in the military police. At this time, Bismarck told what he had experienced, and he smiled after speaking. After hearing what had happened, Blücher took a look at Plan M and realized that it was 100% her responsibility for such a miraculous incident, so he said, "Ignore her, she is just a fool." Finally able to add a word, Plan M retorted, "Oh, it's none of my business, how would I know?" Bismarck said a lot of things, and he did not deliberately avoid Plan M. In fact, Plan M has now become clear that the Admiral and Bismarck in front of him are not abducting the little girl, but are actually the Admiral of U-81. But there are things that are clear and things that are unclear, that is, when did my senior have an admiral? Since there is an admiral, why come here to serve as a military policeman? I had doubts in my heart, but I still didn't believe it. Plan M stretched out his hand, twirled his fingers around the golden curls, hesitated for a moment and changed his approach, and asked, "Your friend?" "It's not a friend, it's the eldest sister, the eldest sister. The most powerful flagship under our admiral. In the original garrison, the German ship could only handle a few people. Although the submarines have rich experience in fighting Z-series destroyers, they are small boats, and small boats have no human rights. Another person who was carefully trained by the admiral was Prince Eugen, but Prince Eugen was his sister. Beizai is very good, but that guy is a book maniac, don't expect to get respect. Therefore, among the German ships, the only one she could willingly call her sister was Bismarck. Of course, Admiral Hipper must also be a sister." Plan M said, "Our admiral, well, you actually have an admiral, do you really have an admiral?" Although he had heard a lot, he was still a little confused. "Of course we have an admiral. But you never said that. Why do I have to tell you such a thing, and I remember telling you about it, but you don't believe it. But the way he holds U-81 is just like those Lolicon characters." Blücher hesitated and said, "Remember, he used to be a big gun gang, but now he has become a Lolita control." After hearing Blücher's words, it was not okay to slander the admiral behind his back. Bismarck coughed. Blücher asked, "Where is the admiral now?" "We came here with the admiral. I saw you, so I came here. He should be with Xiaozai now, and U-81, it should be said that we went to where you live and took a look, but we didn't see U-47 and U-81. U-505, and then U-81 will go to find them. Walking all the way to the beach, I saw U-81 jumping into the sea. I came to find you. They should all be at the beach now." Then Bismarck said, "Look from the window." This was originally the first floor, which was why she was able to see Blücher and Plan M walking in the corridor from the beginning. At this time, Blücher walked to the window, opened the curtains, and saw the entire gendarmerie compound at a glance. She didn't pay attention at first, but now her eyes were deliberately searching the compound of the gendarmerie. She immediately saw several figures. Under a big tree, there are 4 little girls and an adult. "Let's go there quickly." As he said this, Blücher was a little excited. After all, he was the admiral. "Go ahead." At this time, Plan M looked at Blücher's excited expression and seemed to want to run out immediately. Things developed like this with some twists and turns, and in the end, I was left looking for trouble. She was also a little unhappy, lowered her head and muttered, "Look at that, I'm so excited that I feel like I'm going to pee." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly felt a crisis, and then a huge ship-cutting knife hit the ground with a fierce wind against her face. Cement rubble flew, a pit and countless cracks appeared on the ground, and the vibrations could be felt throughout the room. Is it really true that talking is nothing more than your brain? The next second, Blucher swung the anchor and hit Plan M. Plan M quickly reached out to block it. The anchor was so powerful that if an ordinary person was hit by such an anchor, all the bones in his body would probably be broken. However, Plan M itself is a ship girl. Unless it sinks directly, no matter how much damage it takes, it will not die. As long as it takes a bath, everything can be solved. At this time, the iron anchor hit Plan M's arm, smashing Plan M directly onto the wall, although even so she was not injured. M planned to block Blucher's anchor, and immediately complained, "What, this is very dangerous, okay." After complaining like this, she continued to complain, "Isn't it just a casual sentence? Besides, you were very excited to begin with." It was like. For a moment, Blucher's expression turned fierce. He would just let it go if he was reprimanded, but his Bismarck sister was right next to him, and you still said it. The ship-cutting knife in his hand was about to be swung out, trying to cut off the unabashed M plan. However, Bismarck's hand grabbed Blucher's ship-cutting knife. She was a battleship and was much more powerful than Blucher. Okay, stop making trouble, Blucher, go see the Admiral." Blucher thought of what he wanted to do, and since his sister Bismarck had spoken, forget it. She snorted at Plan M, then turned and left. "Sister Bismarck, we are leaving soon." Before leaving the house, Blucher did not forget to look back at Plan M and threatened, "You are going to die." Blucher walked out, and now only Bismarck and Plan M were left in the room. Plan M glanced at Bismarck and thought that he actually blocked Blucher's ship-cutting knife. The armor must be super high, and the boiler must be super, so it has such power. Then she felt lucky for herself. Fortunately, she didn't do anything at the beginning, otherwise she would have been pressed to the ground and rubbed. At this time, she looked at Bismarck's short silver-gray hair and felt slightly uneasy. Then she suddenly thought that it was Bismarck, the crystallization of German technology, and she became excited again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De Rong Yan. Chapter 236. Blucher had already left first. At this time, Bismarck and Plan M were walking in the corridor. Plan M shook his head and looked at the surrounding walls. There is a spider web on the ceiling that has not been dealt with, and someone has painted graffiti on the wall. There are succulent plants in pots along the corridor, and it seems that they have not been watered for a long time. Ah! Plan M scratched his hair. Although he wanted to divert his thoughts, he still felt awkward. However, although she was a little embarrassed, after learning that the other party was Bismarck, she did not want to run away as before, even if Bismarck would not stop her. At the same time, Bismarck looked at Plan M, and she actually had no ill feelings towards Plan M. After 2 steps like this, neither of them spoke. After a long time, Bismarck said, "Plan M." Plan M nodded. Bismarck said, "I have never heard of this type of ship girl before. I had never heard of it when I was in the garrison, and then I had never heard of it while traveling around the world for missions. It seemed to be a rare ship girl." Plan M said with his hands behind his back, "It's just a planned ship, it doesn't have a name. Ship girls without ship names are actually a group of planned ships, although they do not retain various memories of past battles. But the original design researchers and workers also devoted their efforts and memories to such a battleship that had not yet been launched. Just as the design researchers hope that the ships will become powerful after they are built in the future, the workers look at the ships on the slipway and think that they are their own children. Everyone was holding on to expectations. Although it was still not completed or launched in the end, there would still be various memories lingering on the steel, and this was how the planned ship appeared. At this time, hearing the somewhat disappointed sound of Plan M, Bismarck said, "I used to know a ship girl, she is almost the same as you, but a little better than you is that she has a ship name, called Lion. That is a very powerful ship, people. You don't have to say it like that. I don't think anything of it. The planned ship is the planned ship, and Plan M is Plan M." Bismarck was silent, and then said, "Then I am too busy." Of course she looked coldly on those who had ill intentions towards her admiral. But she has always had a good attitude towards the ship girls who also belong to the German family. It is precisely because of this that in the garrison, no German ship has ever regarded Bizai as the boss. It is generally believed that Bismarck is the eldest sister. In many cases, the unsmiling Bismarck is the most reliable person. Bismarck said, "We all know the people here. I don't know if Admiral Hipper has told you. She didn't say anything to me, and I haven't been here long. She, Blücher, and the 3 submarines are all our admiral's shipmates, so it's not a matter of whether we can get them or not. That's the way it is. He is obviously so young. Being young does not mean that you are not experienced enough, even if you are young." Saying this, Bismarck thought of the past. "My own admiral seems to have done nothing all day long, just pointing and pointing. Even if he wanted to talk about his great achievements, he couldn't say anything at this time. If you attack without paying attention to the damage, you will be scolded." He also harassed Helena. Thinking about it, it seems that there is no advantage to be said. Although it's pretty good now, by the way, if I have to say it, never putting the ship girl in danger is the biggest advantage. After thinking for a long time, Bismarck said, "He is quite gentle." What admiral is not gentle? Although there are some iron-blooded admirals, most admirals treat ship girls with tenderness. That's pretty cool. Plan M looked at Bismarck. He didn't know why Bismarck, who looked like a soldier, suddenly said such words. It seemed so out of place. She thought she had seen the appearance of Bismarck's admiral, but in fact it was just like that, and it was difficult to recognize him among a crowd of people. I have to say that he can actually be considered handsome, but it's mainly because he has no distinctive features. But compared to the beauty of the ship girl, unless the man is extremely handsome, he can be called handsome, otherwise he is still ordinary compared to the ship girl. It is said that ship girls who have an admiral always like to regard their admiral as a very handsome person, and now it seems that even Bismarck is no exception. Plan M said, "You said there is no point in finding an admiral, but you are just finding someone to restrain yourself. Without an admiral, the ship girl can go around freely and do whatever she wants without any worries. But with the admiral, it feels like selling out. Just like U-81, she usually doesn't hug anyone because she feels shy because of her breasts, but she hugged her admiral. I think it's just a ring. Everyone will accept it, but she is obviously such a young girl. It's like that Admiral Eugene, the one you saw. Her wedding ship was the destroyer Snow. She is obviously a woman, and the ship's wife is also a woman. Isn't this kind of marriage very strange? Lily. Why did the ship's wife do this? It's weird to accept this kind of thing, isn't it? Just because you are an admiral. You see, why did Blücher go out so excitedly? Isn't it because he is an admiral? After being missing for such a long time, he suddenly came out, and she went up and threw himself into his arms. Obviously this kind of thing is ordinary. Everyone will be angry. Bismarck looked at Plan M, wondering how such a heartless girl could say such a thing, and was about to speak. Plan M suddenly laughed and said with excitement, "I can also call you sister, Sister Bismarck. Why don't you leave your admiral, us, and Blucher, Admiral Hipper, plus submarines, why don't we all form a garrison together? Otherwise, he can work anywhere. Anyway, just leave him one," the destroyer called Xiaozai. He really dared to say anything, and he openly persuaded a ship girl to leave his admiral's side, and they had only known each other for a few minutes. Bismarck said, "The ship girl named Xiaozai is not a destroyer, but the battleship Tirpitz." "Oh, ah. Are you all being served in one pot?" Bismarck looked at Plan M and thought, "You really can't speak." On the other side, the admiral who was talking to Sugu at the beginning was standing in the corridor outside the third floor looking into the compound. Then he saw Blucher coming out. Of course he recognized the red-haired girl. She usually looks full of energy, but her style is completely different from that of her sister. If anyone is the best person to meet when working in the gendarmerie, it is of course Blucher. I usually like to wave the anchor in the compound, and I can hear the sound of ah when passing by. Once I saw her sitting on her own anchor, and then she explained to others that her anchor was not sharp but flat and would not stick to her buttocks, and then she insisted on others sitting on it too. He's serious when he's working, but he's also a bit funny at ordinary times. Overall, Blucher is a very interesting girl, full of energy. But even though she was full of energy, she had seen her waving an anchor to drive away those admirals who wanted to take away her sister. What she usually likes to do is let the submarine sit on the anchor. All in all, she is a sister who loves her sister very much. Thinking like this, he said to the ship girl beside him, "What do you think Blucher will do with that person now? How to deal with it? Just hug it and then ride on it?" "Alas, my ship girl said something." Then he also saw the red-haired girl hugging the man and pressing him to the ground. "Admiral, look, Sister Blucher is here." As the voice of U-505 appeared, Sugu turned his head and saw a red-haired woman approaching, who must be Blucher. However, he and his ship girl had met many times, and when he saw Blucher again, there was no surprise or embarrassment. "Admiral! Admiral!" Sugu said, "Long time no see, Blucher, I'm back." Yes, he came over and said this, and Blucher rushed towards him. "Admiral, I miss you." Hearing Blucher's voice, Sugu thought of Blucher. Thanks to the excellent and cute illustrations, although he only trained to the transformation level and stopped caring about it, of course he regarded Blucher as a secretary ship and had a good impression of it. However, he didn't know much about the other party's personality. He used to think he was a shy type, but after listening to the submarine tell so many stories, he felt he was a wife type. Now he doesn't know what type he is. At this time, because Blucher rushed forward, he was pressed to the ground. Feeling the fullness of the other person's chest, I forgot what I was thinking about for a while. At this moment, I just remembered the sentence I heard before. The brain is a good thing, but I just want breasts, I just want justice. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De Rong Yan. Chapter 237. Blucher has a very good figure, especially a fleshy figure that neither looks fat nor thin. It is very similar to Bazai's figure, not the slender type like Saratoga. It's just that no matter how good your figure is, doing such an indiscreet throwing action in public will have a bad impact. Well, actually, it was mainly because several young submarine girls and Xiaozai were standing nearby, and Xiaozai looked here with wide eyes. Of course, Blucher's hug does not make people think of lust. After all, for the ship girl cares more about the sublimation of emotion than lust. It is true that like an admiral giving a ring to a destroyer primary school student, even the most scumbag person would not be able to do anything to the destroyer. Giving a ring is a kind of emotional bond. Because of this, many admirals want a big sister type ship girl. At this time, After just a hug, Blucher let go of Sugu. Sugu has been on the battlefield for a long time now, and his expression remains unchanged. Blucher's face turned red, but she was also the energetic type, and she recovered from her embarrassment and blushing. "Admiral, Admiral." What followed was another encounter and conversation, which was just another question repeated countless times in the past. It was just why he left, why he came back, and how he found this place. Sugu answered these questions countless times to the little girls. However, it can be heard that Bismarck has already said a lot to Blucher, so at this time only a brief explanation and addition is needed. At the same time, Sugu looked at Blucher in front of him. He was not impressed by Blucher. The main reason is that in the original game, Blucher was not very powerful among heavy cruisers. However, thanks to the excellent vertical painting, Blucher was still placed in a favorable impression after the original modification. Blucher's most classic skill is to increase the critical hit rate and the critical hit rate, which is a very magical skill. However, in history, the heavy cruiser Blucher was a powerful presence that dared to challenge shore artillery at sea. This is probably the origin of the secret confidence. I just heard someone say that U-81 was kidnapped and trafficked. I didn't expect it to be the Admiral. I was shocked at first. I didn't expect Sister Bismarck to come over. Plan M, that's a fool. When he was first recruited, he didn't know anything and needed to be taught everything. He taught her things, but she didn't listen and said that he was a martial artist. How can there be a martial artist like her? A faction, an illiterate martial arts faction. Blucher said this, and then saw Sugu's wet look, and asked in confusion, "Why are you so wet?" Sugu reached out and touched U-47's head and said, "Ask U-47 why I got wet." As soon as they met, he was dragged into the sea by his own ship's wife, or by a small submarine. U-47's face was not red, her heart was not beating. She looked up at Blucher with her hands behind her back and said, "The Admiral fell into the sea by himself. Fortunately, we rescued him, otherwise it would have been terrible." Sugu looked at U-47 and saw U-47 sticking out his tongue at him. He didn't expect that a little girl like you was so cunning. U-505 also said, "That's right." Sugu was stunned. He didn't expect that U-505, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, would also betray the revolution. But these things are just small details. Sugu pinched U-47's cheek and said, "That's it?" Blucher didn't care so much. He glanced at U-47 and U-505 doubtfully, and then said, "Then the Admiral should go back and take a shower, otherwise he will be dry by then and there will be salt on his body. After swimming in sea water, do not rinse your body with fresh water. The salt will adhere to the surface of the skin and make people uncomfortable. Therefore, generally speaking, you should rinse your body with fresh water after bathing in sea water. And the clothes probably need to be changed. After all, the little girl doesn't think about so many things when playing pranks, such as whether her Admiral has clothes to change into when he is soaked." Blucher was careful and said, "You must also change your clothes, otherwise you will catch a cold easily. The Admiral is just an ordinary person, not a ship girl." After talking like this, Bismarck also came over. Plan M looked at a few people from a distance and did not step forward. Then Blucher took everyone back to the small villa where they had been living. After walking into the room and inviting everyone to sit down, Blucher put down a few cups on the coffee table and asked, "Would you like tea?" Sugu said, "No need." Blucher poured tea into the cup and then said, "Admiral, do you want hot water?" Sugu said, "Whatever, if it's convenient, I'd like hot water. It's still a bit cold to take a cold shower these days." "Well, let's get some hot water, I'm going to put the water in." Sugu was still a little wet, so he stood and looked around. Several submarines were only wearing swimsuits, so the water stains on their bodies had almost dried up by now. They are now sitting on the sofa, running around restlessly in the living room at any time, digging out some messy things to show to Xiaozai, such as some collected cards, and specimens, such as butterflies and ants, grasshoppers and shrimps. Blucher came out soon after and asked, "Have you had lunch?" Although she asked this question, she was holding a tray in her hand and had already taken out things. Then let's have bread and bacon, which were left over from the morning. It was true that he didn't eat lunch. Sugu took a piece from the plate and took 2 bites. The taste was average. But looking at Blucher's shining eyes, he then praised him twice. Then I saw Blucher saying with some pride, "Of course my craftsmanship is very good." Then Blucher said, "I followed my sister in the past. After all, she was unreliable and had left long ago. We stayed behind in the garrison before leaving. At that time, we saw that the submarines were still there, so we called them together. Later, due to some accidents on the way, I saved a ship girl. She worked at the ship girl headquarters. She heard that we had nothing to do, so she invited us here later, but she also trained for a long time before coming here. I've met a lot of people here, Admiral, do you know? We know a destroyer Firefly, not the little Firefly in our garrison. That Firefly is already a full adult, looks like he's in his 20s, surrounded by scarf. If she hadn't identified herself, we wouldn't have been able to recognize her at all. They say humans can grow old overnight, and ship girls can also grow up overnight. Did the Admiral come here before? It's a pity that we didn't meet him." While talking like this, Blucher ran into the bathroom with a troubled expression, and then ran out and called Sugu over. We installed a shower head and filled the bathtub with water. The bathtub is very big because the 3 of U-47 like to play around in the bath. The little yellow ducks next to them are their toys, and they take a bath. I like squeezing soap when I'm in bed. Yes, Sugu responded, then took off his outermost clothes, and then saw that Blucher was still there. "I'm ready to take a shower." "Admiral, wash it?" "I'm ready to take a shower," Sugu said again. "Wash it?" "I'm going to take off my clothes and take a shower." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 238. What's Blucher's plan? Whether she really didn't understand or pretended not to understand, Sugu didn't know. Anyway, after he took off his coat, Blucher left. The reason for leaving was not because he was about to take off his clothes. After all, as a man, he was going to take off his clothes and take a shower. As a woman, Blucher was still around, which would have a bad influence. Although in theory, Sugu welcomes such a thing 100%. However, there was no wonderful development after all. The reason why Blucher left was because he saw 3 small submarines coming in. After all, in addition to Sugu, several U-47 submarines also played in the sea for such a long time, and of course they had to use fresh water before bathing. So when U-47 came over with a small swimming ring, he immediately saw Blucher and Sugu, and then looked at them with suspicious eyes. Sugu glared at U-47, saying nothing happened. "You obviously know that your admiral is taking a shower, so you guys ran in. You must have some ideas, and what are you doing here forcing U-81 to come over?" However, Sugu was happy to wash with a little girl, but U-47 and U-505 were fine, and U-81's foul breasts really didn't look like a little girl's. Then just like that, Blucher looked at a few little girls, and then led the submarines out. Everyone left and soon lay in the bathtub. Sugu took the toy yellow duck and squeezed it, then placed it on the water. He thought of several small submarines and then of Blucher. For the first time, I had the opportunity to take a mixed bath. On one side was the big sister with a plump figure and on the other was the cute little submarine. The 2 joys overlapped each other. This double joy brought more and more joy, and I should have had a dream-like happy time. However, why does it become like this? After a while, the hot water in the bathtub turned to warm water and even slowly turned to cold water. Until my fingers felt wrinkled. Finally at this moment there was a knock on the door in the bathroom, and Blucher's voice also sounded. "Admiral, I've put your clothes outside for you." After hearing the sound, Sugu came out of the bathroom and found clothes in the bamboo basket. What Blucher sent over was a set of ordinary clothes, which he bought at a random clothing store outside the gendarmerie compound. Such a set of clothes barely fit him. Then he put on his socks and shoes and jumped on the ground. Then he stood in front of the mirror, dried his hair with a towel, and combed it with his fingers. He felt much refreshed and handsome after just taking a shower. At this time, U-47 said from the side, "Smelly." U-47 said this, and before Sugu clenched his hand into a fist and hit her on the head, the three submarines ran into the bathroom, and soon there was a noise. After taking a shower, Sugu returned to the living room, then took a knife on the coffee table and started peeling pears. Blucher looked at Sugu and said, "It looks suitable. That was the clothes she chose." Sugu nodded and said, "Yes, it fits well. Of course my vision is right. Here we go again, my compliment was just a polite compliment." After Sugu finished peeling the pear, he waved the whole piece of pear skin in front of Xiaozai and said, "Xiaozai, how do you think it is?" Oh! It was so boring that there was no sound of surprise. Then Sugu threw the pear skin into the trash can and finished the pear. Then three submarines ran out. At this time, they were no longer wearing swimsuits, but changed into ordinary children's clothes. The hair of U-47 and U-505 has not been tied up yet, and is hanging casually on the back. Three people and three hoodies, namely a crocodile, a dinosaur, and a tiger. At this time, U-47 was tinkering in the living room and said, "Hey, would you like to come to our room and take a look, Admiral? We have a lot of collections." Of course I have to check out the little girl's room." Then I walked to the submarine's room. In that room, except for the three-tiered beds, there were basically three sets of commonly used things. I didn't see anything particularly distinctive, but in the end I found a large aquarium in the corner of the room. So he walked over, looked at it, and grinned. There were some strange undersea animals in the aquarium. "What is that lamprey-like thing, and is the other one a nautilus? You are all raising some strange things. There used to be a lot of shrimp, but they were all eaten. These fish often die, so every once in a while we have to catch some. When Sister Blucher cooks fish, she always catches it directly from our aquarium. Admiral, do you want to play?" Saying this, U-47 directly grabbed a fish from the aquarium and stuffed it into Sugu's hand. At this time, Sugu saw the colorful snake-shaped fish in his hand and quickly shook it away. Then he saw U-47 smiling. Being teased, Sugu thought a little depressed. In this way, I wandered around the submarine's room for a while, and then came out. Sugu sat on the sofa in the living room, ate some fruit and said a few innocuous words. Then he saw U-47 sitting next to him, holding a book, and looked at the cover of the book with some curiosity. The name on the cover was 100,000 Whys. I remember having a book like this when I was young, but I didn't expect it to be available here. However, compared to my previous books, this book has no colorful pictures, and the whole book is much thinner. It seems that the names are just gimmicks. Consultant Su asked, "Do you still read this kind of book?" U-47 said, "Of course." Sugu saw U-47 holding the book and had already read the last few pages, and then said, "You have actually read so much?" "Of course." "Have you read them all?" "Then I'll test you." U-47 smiled proudly, put the book into Sugu's hand, and said, "I have finished reading it. Admiral, please ask questions. No matter what kind of question it is, U-47 can answer it." Real. U-47 nodded decisively, looking very confident, and said, really. Sugu held the book and was silent for a moment, then said, what is Kirchhoff's current law? Oh, that. What about the law of electromagnetic induction? Well. Theorem of motion of the center of mass. Principle of constant speed of light. Sugu saw the embarrassment on U-47's face. In fact, he knew the previous laws, but he didn't know the contents of the following theorems and principles. He just said it because he remembered it before and thought it was very powerful. However, although he didn't know it, it didn't stop him from taking the U-47 test. At this time, seeing that U-47 couldn't answer a single question, he felt a little proud. Then Sugu put the book in U-47's hand and said, you don't understand anything at all. U-47 shouted, those things are not in the book. I didn't say I wanted to test the content in the book. Then Sugu turned to look at U-81 and said, I'll test you too, U-81. U-81 opened her mouth slightly, looking a little surprised. She didn't know why she turned into herself. Who's mom's mom? Although she is a ship girl, she also knows these things. U-81 replied, it's grandma. Who is more powerful, hyena or lion? Lion. Sugu touched U-81's head, then glanced provocatively at U-47 and said, U-81 is very smart. U-47 immediately went to pull Sugu's clothes and said, I know this kind of problem. Sugu grinned and said, what should you call your mother's father's sister's daughter's husband? U-47 counted on his fingers and suddenly felt a little confused. Who is more powerful, the lactating Cordia brown bear or the Komodo dragon? Please tell me why. What methods does the Komodo dragon rely on to kill its enemies? U-47 was stunned, what is this and what? The Cordia brown bear should be more powerful, but the Komodo dragon and Longi sound very powerful. And what do you rely on to kill the enemy? It shouldn't be enough to just bite, or else just use claws. Sugu looked at U-47 who was still thinking about the question, and said with a confused look, I can't even answer this. Alas, I'm disappointed in you. Komodo dragons rely on sepsis, then let me ask you a simpler question. Question. A medium rare steak and a medium rare steak met, but they didn't say hello. Why? U-47 scratched his hair and didn't understand. At this time, Xiao Zai said from the side, because they are unfamiliar, of course Xiao Zai has heard such a cold joke. Then Sugu said to U-47, this is the last question. Once upon a time, there were two people. One called me a pig, and the other called me not a pig. Then I died because I was not a pig. Who is left? U-47 frowned and suddenly said in surprise, I'm a pig. Sugu is smiling. U-47 was a little confused and said again, it's just that I'm a pig. Sugu said seriously, by the way, you are a pig. Hearing this, Blucher was laughing, Xiaozai was also laughing as he held U-505 in his arms, she was laughing to the point of laughter anyway. Bismarck looked out the window, there was no laughter, but his shoulders were shrugging. Hearing everyone's laughter, U-47 also understood what he said, and then his face became redder and redder, and his eyes became misty. She made a face, immediately smashed the book in her hand on Sugu, and then yelled loudly, almost crying. After all, she was just a little girl. Bismarck looked at Sugu with an expression that said you were in trouble. The little girl started crying, and Sugu was a little embarrassed. After all, no matter how funny he is, even if he bullies the little girl, it will make the little girl cry. At this time, he becomes a heinous person in the eyes of everyone. Bismarck was not good at comforting little girls, Blucher also looked helpless, Xiao Zai was the most heartless person, U-47's eyes were red, but she smiled the most vigorously. There is no other way but to take action on your own. U-47 Sugu called out. U-47 ignored him and was having trouble. U-47 Sugu called again, but still ignored him. Sugu was a little helpless. He had no children and no experience in taking care of children. Usually there is basically no chance of making the destroyer cry. On the contrary, he is a very popular existence in the garrison. At this time, there is nothing that can be done about the little girl or young girl. U-47, let me tell you a joke. An ant saw an elephant on the road. The ant burrowed into the soil and only one leg was exposed. The little rabbit saw it and asked in confusion, why was the leg exposed? The ant said, hush. Don't make a sound, I will trip him. After telling a joke like this, U-47 still kept a straight face. Sugu thought for a while and decided that he should be closer to life. Then he said, one day, the destroyer Veneto and the battleship Richelieu went to see a movie. Richelieu happened to be sitting in front of Veneto. Veneto was blocked and could not see the movie. After a while, Veneto couldn't bear it anymore and sat in front of Richelieu. Then he turned around and said to her, you know now that you are blocked, it's a taste. U-47 didn't laugh. Blucher heard it, but he patted Sugu on the shoulder and said, if she finds out about how you arranged Veneto like this, I'm afraid she will splash coffee all over you. U-47 raised his head and said, Sister Veneto is a battleship. Don't you understand such jokes? It seemed that the little girl was just a little girl, but she finally spoke, and the solution was very good. Then Sugu hugged U-47 and said a few more words. I have to say that the child's face was very happy in June. U-47 soon became happy. After comforting U-47, Sugu looked inside the room and saw a banner that read, Outstanding Military Police. Sugu was a little amused and asked, you still have banners? Of course. Sugu said, isn't your style good? By the way, what kind of work do your military police usually do? Although when I was in the academy, I knew what the military police were doing and what role they played in their work. But what exactly was involved? After all, he was a good admiral and had no chance of dealing with the military police. At this time, since my ship girl is engaged in the work of the military police, of course I have to ask. That means dealing with some admirals who made mistakes. Not everyone says that admirals are persistent and generally don't make mistakes. Sugu said this, although he probably knew why. For example, people's hearts are changeable. But when it comes to chatting, after you have said everything, what else do you want others to say? Blucher said, what kind of person is there? You are not the same. You abandon everyone and leave, ordinary admirals, although the academy only recruits those who are persistent at the beginning. But human beings, a preference for the new and dislike of the old, an inflated desire for power, and the fickleness of people's hearts will always change a person slowly. If a person changes, an admiral will have no way to build a new ship girl, and there will be no way to gain the approval of the new ship girl. But no matter what, in other words, as long as you don't go too far, the original ship girl will always follow you. If you want to punish an admiral, other things are easier to handle, but many times even if your admiral does something wrong, the ship girl will defend her admiral. Even if we are the military police, we cannot judge an admiral casually. We also pay attention to evidence, but sometimes as a victim, the ship girl will not report the admiral, and this kind of thing is the most troublesome. Some admirals just need to be dealt with. It is obvious that the ship girl has given her sincerity, but as an admiral, she turns a blind eye and instead thinks that she is right. After saying this, Blucher smiled at Sugu and said, Admiral, I'm talking about you. When you added a sentence like this, you were obviously talking about me. Otherwise, would there be any need to emphasize it deliberately? However, Sugu did not refute or admit that it was all a game in the past, but at least now he would never make such a mistake again. After introducing some things one after another, Blucher said, how to talk about the specific things. Some are running around. Well, if you want to know so much, then let's go to my sister's place to have a look first. Shouldn't she be in a meeting? Sugu also knew that Admiral Hipper, the captain of the gendarmerie, called the admiral who came nearby to attend a meeting. He heard this from Eugene, who had withdrawn halfway. After all, we talked a lot together at the beginning. Regardless of whether he believed what Sugu said or not, when Sugu mentioned the matter of Admiral Hipper, Eugene told everything he knew. She is in a meeting, and I don't want to disturb her. I originally wanted to give her a surprise, but forget it, she looks like an old maid. Especially now that she has become the captain of the gendarmerie, she always has a straight face. Even if we see the admiral, it shouldn't be a big deal. They are having a meeting in the auditorium, so we can just stand outside and watch. It doesn't matter, we won't disturb her. And, since you want to know what we are doing, then go and take a look. Originally, he didn't want to disturb their work, but Sugu didn't have that kind of mentality. He wanted the ship girl to interrupt her work but also come to meet him. Since it won't disturb her, that's fine. Then he nodded and said, let's go over and see your sister. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 239. Blucher proposed to see Admiral Hipper, accompanied by Sugu and Bismarck. Zai and the submarines were playing at home, and they were not interested in the affairs of the military police. Just like U-81 originally couldn't figure out what her sister Blucher was doing, because they didn't pay attention at all. At this time, several people had some lunch casually, and Blucher did not bring lunch to her sister who did not come home at noon. In her words, her sister would not stop to eat at all while working. Several people passed through the military police compound and saw Plan M again as they passed by. At this time, she was sitting on the steps from the corridor to the yard in the distance, swinging on her own shipsuit skateboard. She saw Sugu and his group, and then lowered her head. Sugu had a feeling that he was being looked at deeply. But even so, Sugu didn't want to say hello deliberately. After all, she was not his ship girl. We walked up the steps, walked through the corridor, and then walked to the third floor. While holding onto the cement handrail, Sugu heard an ah sound, and then he saw a little girl sitting on the handrail and sliding down. Who is that? The destroyers brought here by the admirals, their admirals are in a meeting, but the destroyers can't stay. What model is it? Akatsuki. Akatsuki. That's not 6th Drive, it's also Team Underpants, but it looks so ordinary. Akatsuki was just an interlude. On the stairs, Blucher said, the first floor is our office, the second floor is the interrogation room, and the third floor is the auditorium. It's just a few rooms put together. The auditorium is used for meetings. Although there are not many admirals, even an ordinary room can be used, but holding meetings in the auditorium has become a habit. Sometimes everyone is in the first row, and the back is empty, which feels strange. With that said, several people walked to the third floor. Then he walked to the window outside the auditorium. The curtains were not drawn, and Admiral Hipper could be seen through the window. She wore a fitted military police uniform with black boots, her green hair was pulled up, and she wore plain glasses, looking mature and intellectual. For a moment, Sugu found it difficult to imagine that this was the Admiral Hipper. But after such a long period of training, no matter what kind of person they are, they can be changed. He also knew that he couldn't just look at his ship girls through the eyes of the game, because they were now living ship girls. At this time, Admiral Hipper stood on the podium and spoke, his voice so powerful that it could be heard even from outside. Please do not attack the destroyer at will. Our military police have received many reports saying that you have misbehaved in public places. Don't do many things, and don't interfere in government affairs. This is what we have always said. And you, what are you looking at with your head down? Are your feet so beautiful? Especially you, don't promote your club like a pyramid scheme. The admiral who was named by Hipper raised his head and said, I am not breaking the law in promoting the society. How could he give in so easily? Would you like some rabbit today? Society members will never give in easily. Outside the auditorium, Blucher said, he is the admiral of the Akatsuki just now. What society does he promote? Would you like some rabbit today? Is this club famous? Sugu had also heard of it. Yes. Then are all their garrison destroyers? That would be great, but they are just lolicons. In fact, there are also very powerful ship girls in the town hall. Blucher looked around, then pointed to a person and said, did you see that person? His name is Zhang Lu. He is also a member of the society. He is a man who will do anything for submarines. Don't look at his serious appearance. Only his secretary ship is serious, which is the San Juan currently sitting next to him. Although it is not a very powerful ship, he likes it very much. There is also the reputation in his ship, although it is not as powerful as the ship. Our reputation should be the difference between a warrior and a god of war, but it is also very powerful. He is the most perverted. I remember going to his townhouse before. It wasn't because he molested Lolita or anything. Well, mainly because I heard people say that there were always strange sounds coming from his townhouse. I thought, what kind of binding, dripping wax, that is a very bad thing. Of course our military police have to take care of this kind of thing. Later, we sneaked into his garrison, and then, I found out that he was actually being hanged by his own ship girl. He stood up to fight, saying that it was a waste of all resources. And he did all this to build a submarine, and he also said that he was a perseverant person. Scum. Sugu looked over intently. Wasn't that the admiral who was talking to him? The ship girl following him turned out to be also a San Juan. Blucher said, did you see the admiral sitting on his right? He too. No, it's just that he is also a failure in large-scale construction. His garrison can no longer make ends meet, and he still wants to build. Her secretaryship contacted us privately and asked us to teach him a lesson, and even control the resources. All good. Then do you agree? Of course she didn't agree. What does she think of our military police? Sugu didn't speak. He couldn't understand it. Logically speaking, shouldn't he agree? Blucher added, don't look at my sister's appearance. She is wearing plain glasses. Although she is speaking very angrily now, the angrier she is, the less she cares. If she talks to you calmly, that's when you have to be careful. While Sugu and Blucher were talking, Admiral Hipper in the auditorium was saying, no matter what, your resources must be controlled. I shouldn't have to care about these things, but I saw that the ship's wife was badly damaged and injured. It's very heartbreaking to repair it. Remember, every time you build a battleship, one battleship will not be repaired. At this time, an admiral raised his hand and said, Captain, I don't have a battleship, only a destroyer. After hearing this, Admiral Hipper rubbed his forehead. It's true, not every garrison has a battleship. Then, she shook her head and was about to speak when she suddenly saw her sister Blucher standing there outside the window, with Bismarck standing next to her. What I originally wanted to say was interrupted. Why is Bismarck standing here? She rubbed her eyes, and then saw her admiral who had been gone for who knows how long, and she was really a little surprised this time. At the same time, Sugu saw Admiral Hipper seeing him, and he waved, but there was no response. Didn't you see that? Blucher said, I don't want to talk to you. Then Sugu heard Admiral Hipper call an admiral's name and asked, do you know why I called you here? Well, now I want to ask you a question. Admiral Hipper said, what do you think should be done to those admirals who abandon their ship wives and fly away if they are caught? I have encountered a case before. An admiral originally had a large garrison and the development was very good. Although he occasionally disappeared as an admiral, he would always appear every day. Then he suddenly disappeared without leaving any message. There were many wedding ships, and many ship girls who liked her. He left, and the Larry mansion was in an uproar for a while. Huge resources were consumed, and he still hadn't been found, and the ship girls in the garrison were also far apart. According to the regulations of the military police, such abandonment is not allowed. If such a person is found, what do you think should be done? At this time, Sugu heard this question. Although Admiral Hipper was asking someone else, he knew exactly who Admiral Hipper was talking about. Rai smile. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 240. Standing in the corridor outside the auditorium, Sugu heard Admiral Hipper's question. Although I knew at this time that the question was for me, logically speaking, it was just a game, so I really didn't feel any guilt at all. However, having been together for such a long time and feeling the feelings of his ship girl, Sugu would not do such a thing again at that time, unless it was an accident. But if there is an accident, it usually won't happen. In fact, he has always had a good temper and didn't like to conflict with others when he was in the academy. Usually, even if you want to be alone, after all, everyone has their own secrets, it is always inconvenient to have a ship girl around. For example, if you want to buy a notebook or other things, then you definitely don't want Lexington or Zai to accompany you. However, for the sake of safety, I still let the ship girl follow me, even though Saratoga's sister-in-law kept saying that it was a forbidden love affair. At this time, Sugu thought about the question raised by Admiral Hipper. Then Blucher glanced at him deliberately. Sugu shrugged his shoulders towards her, and then looked at Bismarck. The other person's face was as calm as ever. But Sugu also knew that many of Bismarck's emotions would not be shown on his face. There was no need to answer it by himself, he just needed to think about it in his heart, and Sugu managed to escape the test. No matter what, from a personal point of view, it is better not to be punished. Sugu was still thinking. At this time, the admiral who was being questioned in the auditorium felt a little miserable. The person who asked him the question was Admiral Hipper, not Blucher or Plan M generally. No one would dare to be unscrupulous. In addition, his character is not that bold to begin with, so he can only answer questions seriously at this time. I think this kind of thing is too much. As a ship girl, the admiral is everything. Although it is said that everyone has an equal relationship, when it comes to the admiral, a ship girl will usually hug her brother, father, sister, mother, or husband. Look at the relationship like this. The ship girl is sincere, but the admiral cannot ignore it like this. Such behavior will completely break the heart of the ship girl. If someone has a more excited personality and knows that the admiral has left her, she may do some irrational behavior. This kind of behavior is absolutely undesirable. The ship girl is like a daughter. Life revolves around the admiral, and it will gradually wither away from the admiral. Most people have enough ways to understand the ship girl before becoming an admiral. Since they know the character of the ship girl from the beginning, if they can't have a beginning and an end, then why should they become an admiral? Since you have become an admiral, you must abide by the agreement from the beginning. You cannot just let it go casually. If the ship girl is harmed because of the admiral's departure, I think the punishment should be like this. At this time, Sugu was standing outside and heard others saying that this was a complete stranger without any emotion. After listening to this, Sugu heard Blucher standing next to him whisper, "Admiral, do you have any thoughts?" Bismarck said, "It doesn't matter, as long as the admiral comes back." Sugu smiled bitterly and said, "The more you say this, Bismarck, the more guilty I feel, at least I will never leave casually in the future." After saying this for a few words, the admiral in the auditorium finished his answer. After asking this question once, Admiral Hipper did not look towards the window again, and Sugu couldn't tell whether she was excited or not. All in all, Admiral Hipper continues to do his own thing, hold meetings when it is time to do so, and talk about things when they should. Such an abrupt question is a bit inexplicable to everyone in the auditorium. Outside the auditorium, Blücher said, "This is what the gendarmerie usually does." The work of the gendarmerie is actually not very busy. It should be said that when it is busy, and when it is idle, it is very idle. After talking like this for a while, I don't know how long the meeting inside will take. Then there was an admiral in the auditorium who noticed the situation outside and turned his head to look at it several times. Sugu suddenly felt that if he continued to stay here, it would affect the meeting, and then everyone left the auditorium. Soon after returning to the house again, Xiaozai and U-47 were still running around. U-505 was lying on the sofa with a book on his body, looking a little drowsy. U-81's 3 wolf cubs went out to play and have only come back now. U-81 is combing their hair and then putting hats and eyes on them. They look very funny. Sugu looked at Xiaozai, who glanced at him and continued talking to U-47. Xiaozai now has many playmates, and it is really frustrating to abandon him as the admiral. Since I came out in the morning, too many things have happened in one day, and by this time the sun is gradually getting ready to set. It's early spring now, and it's getting dark quickly. Looking out the window, I think there's no way I can go back today. Then Sugu told Blücher that he wanted to go out for a while. Blücher was preparing dinner for everyone. Hearing Sugu's words, he said, "What's wrong? My boat is parked at the pier I originally met U-81, and then walked over to him. Now that I have decided to stay here for a night, I think it would be better to bring the yacht over." Blücher said, "Then you go ahead. By the way, what would the admiral want to eat for dinner?" "Then what do you know? You should ask me what I don't." "It's up to you." Sugu was Blücher, who had given up on his secret self-confidence anyway, and was thinking about buying some braised pork. Soon after, he took Bismarck out and then came back in the yacht. No matter what, the yacht is still safe here. No one would dare to come to the gendarmerie to steal anything. After all, stealing things here is a very bad thing. Finally, I drove the yacht over, parked it, and returned to the house to find that Admiral Hipper had returned. Seeing Sugu at this time, Admiral Hipper said, "Admiral, come back." His voice was really cold, and there was no excitement at all. "Yes." Sugu responded like this and thought for a moment, could it be that Hipper was so cold because he only had a 50-50 favorability rating? But I don't remember how much favor Hipper had. It should be more than 50. After all, the fish fry attack will also increase the favor, anyway, even if it exceeds, it won't be much. But it is no longer a game, and of course we can no longer look at the problem from the perspective of a game. After talking to Admiral Hipper for a while, Sugu introduced the current situation of his garrison. At this time, Blücher served the food and everyone gathered around the table. It was now 6 o'clock. But the reason for eating so early is mainly because no one had a special lunch at noon. Everyone was enjoying themselves at the dinner table. Admiral Hipper held his chopsticks and suddenly said, "By the way, Firefly has been found. She is fine now." Sugu's expression was strange. "You didn't even ask about your sister, Prince Eugen, but you asked Firefly first?"